Hey guys, welcome to episode 2 of Beyond the Live Room. I'm your host Shreyas, and today I have a very special guest with me, Mr. Xander Naylor from New York City, originally from North Carolina, South Carolina, then Vermont. I don't know, but yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, man, and thank you for doing this podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Schedule's quite busy, but
well, it's all busy with stuff I'm doing with you anyway, so.
that's true. We'll get to that. In case it sounds a little ambiguous, that statement. But Xander's actually been coming down to Calcutta for the last couple of years to learn Indian classical music and just immerse himself in that culture. And on one of those trips, he was traveling to Kaziranga, because why wouldn't you? And he fortunately bumped into this other friend of ours called Vinay Kaushal. They started talking. They have a lot of common interests, guitar playing and music being one of them. And Vinay said, "Hey man, why don't you come back to India next year and we'll put together a little tour for you? I know a great drummer. I don't know who that is, but and then it happened, man. Like when Vinay got in touch with me in August and said this is happening, it seemed I was like, okay, cool. If it does, nothing like it. But then it all came together pretty well.
Couldn't have worked out better.
Yeah, and here we are. So how's it been for you, the difference between, say, coming here just to stay in Calcutta and learn versus now actually working as many people would say an Indian musician does, traveling around halfway through the tour right now. What's the scene like? How's it treating you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like exactly what you just said. For me, whenever I'm traveling and I'm like specifically on tour and like working as a musician, it's like a completely different experience than if I'm more as a student or a tourist or something, And so that dimension is there. And then also like specifically just coming in here and like living the life here in this city, like staying at Vinay's place, and kind of like knowing what that home life is like. And then just seeing the city from that perspective is like completely different thing,
Yeah.
I think we calculated yesterday that I've probably had about like 45 completely unique meals in the last 2 weeks, which is amazing, and everyone has been top notch.
45 more to come.
45 more to come. I'll probably have like 150 more to come. I'll be here until the end of March.
We're doing states that you haven't been to yet, where the food is completely different.
Yeah.
Which is nice, dude. I was very impressed by the fact that you and Maggie, your wife, are both unfussy about what's put in front of you. Always happy to eat anything that's there, explore small cafes, local food, and you somehow seem immune to, I don't know, gastrointestinal issues that plague Americans when they come to India. What's the secret behind that?
Go to Calcutta first.
Right? Start at the bottom, and then after that, everything's clean after Calcutta.
Yeah, I think once I ate like a lot of street food in Calcutta, then coming here, I was just like, go to any restaurant, any home-cooked meal, I'm good to go.
Yeah, true. Home-cooked meals, I think, are safe anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've done a few cities so far. We've done a few venues. You've experienced like the good venues. I don't want to say the bad venues, but maybe not ideal venues in terms of the crowd, in terms of something that Indian musicians will whine about is payment. Some guys are nice enough to pay you on time. Some people you really have to chase. You've seen some of that already.
Yeah.
And maybe they're being a little more polite because your journey has like a hard stop where you have to leave and you can press people to.
Yeah.
But is New York similar in that case, or are people just better when it comes to paying musicians on time? What's that like?
It's a tough call. I think for me it's just different because when I'm there in New York, I kind of like know what the system is, and I kind of can feel out people's communication style a little bit more. So I have a good feeling from someone, even just based on the emails with them, whether or not it seems like it's going to be easy to deal with payment with them, So it's been pretty interesting even booking this whole tour because from the beginning, I was always talking with Vinay about this stuff, talking to different promoters, talking to venues, and I always had him to check with because sometimes I would get an email and I didn't necessarily know what the lingo was,
Right.
So like something they might talk about like payment in the US, but here they might talk about like commercials or something. But at first I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of gotten to this point where I generally kind of understand what's going on.
You understand the language.
There's going to be honest people and there's going to be people who are flaky no matter where you go.
Right.
They just have a different way of saying it.
True. But back home, you would say no to these kind of venues and these shows, which maybe is not the luxury we have on this tour right now because we've said yes to everyone and everything, and we'll worry about money collection after.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any given tour, there's always going to be like these kind of moments where you have to decide which gigs you want to take, you know, and like maybe you have two different ones come up on the same day, you choose which one you want to do.
True.
And some days you have the luxury of booking a tour where you can do whatever you want, and other ones you're taking
Do
other
what you
gigs,
can.
but you know.
Yeah.
But that being said, like I've enjoyed all the gigs that we're doing, you know,
Me too.
and no, I've never had a tour where like the entire thing was like perfect and every audience was like perfect.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Honestly,
that's just part of being on the road, you know.
That's
You
true.
never know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
especially when you're going to cities that you've never been to before, you know.
True. And honestly, yeah, I feel like we
Yeah.
play for the band, and then the audience just seems to be there, incidental.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had a bad show yet, and I don't think we'll have a bad show on this tour, no matter what happens with the venue, with the audience. I feel
Yeah.
like the music is good. We're having a good time. So,
Yeah, but you know, you always like for me it's like I try not to get bogged down with like what one specific show is like or another one, which for me can be hard, especially when it's like a tour like this where all the music is pretty much my music, right? So I
Yeah.
can get like I can start taking it a little personally sometimes, right?
True.
Or I start saying I don't want to have to change the music for this gig or that gig.
Yeah.
You know, but in the end for me the thing that works out the best is just like you just got to latch onto the positive gigs, you know, for those
Yeah.
ones that people are like really paying attention and they're coming up to you and talking to you about it, like in between sets or something. Like, those are the moments that keep me going, you know.
True.
Skinny Mo's, when we played in Skinny Mo's at Calcutta last
Yeah.
Friday, you
That was a
know,
great
we had
show.
like probably almost like 70 people and they didn't even have a liquor license there.
That's true.
So there were 70 people who were there literally only to hear us.
Yeah.
There was literally nothing else they could do in that room.
That's true.
And they were there for the entire time, paying attention. And
Yeah.
like, I know you knew the difference. You know?
I did. I was actually a little nervous for the first two songs because it's
Yeah.
hard to be under the scanner like that, Usually it's okay.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that you can take it a little personally because it's your music that you're presenting, but you don't. Not just with audiences and venues, but I've also noticed that with Vinay and I playing your music, you don't seem to take it very, very personally either. You're okay with how we choose to interpret your music, as opposed to maybe having a very fixed outlook on it and saying this is how it's written, this is how I would like you all to play it.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? Has this always been the case with you playing with other musicians? Are you just okay for them to, bring what they have to the table when it comes to your music?
You know, I think it's definitely something I've had to work at a lot because I have definitely had my phases of just being a complete control freak about things and trying to tell people to play this specific part at that specific time. And yeah, I've had a lot of tense situations before, and I found that like as I worked at it more, it just always works out better when I kind of like stay out of the way,
Yeah.
let the ego stay at the door, walk into the room and just focus on the music.
Right.
And yeah, I don't know. It's definitely like, I got in the last several years I got more into more kind of like spiritual practices that, I do those things for like my entire life,
Yeah.
like having regular meditation routines in the morning, like before I go into my day, that feeds into it,
Yeah, it
and then I can
helps.
take that into the rehearsal kind of thing or into the gig. And just, for me, making music is about like sharing things with people,
Right.
And it's about like when you have a band, you're also trying to work with the other people who are in the band, even if it's my music, like I don't want to expect these other humans to act like robots.
Yeah.
I want Vinay or whoever's playing to be able to like share the music the way that you want to and the way you feel most comfortable with.
Right, because you made a choice to bring them in on that whole process. So
Yeah.
now that they're in, it's kind of hard or unfair to say, I want you in this much, but no more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's easy with
Competent
guys like you two
musicians.
guys because you guys both jumped right in. Like we were talking last night over dinner about how in like the first couple rehearsals, I just realized like, oh, these two guys have actually played a lot. It's quite obvious how much you guys have played together, and you have like a certain way that you talk about the music, and
Yeah.
you start figuring out exactly how you want to do the breaks and stuff.
True.
And when I saw that was happening, I said, all right, like these guys have a system. I don't need to say,
Yeah.
get rid of your system, let me do my system,
Probably easier for me to figure out what you guys are up to and then try to find my space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more fun too. Then I get to learn something too. Because if I'm just ordering people around, I don't get to learn.
Definitely. Then every show is the same for you, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, this way you so.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you get into classical music though? Because that's what brings you to India, and which is what put us in touch. So
Yeah.
How did that begin back in New York?
That was just. I think it was just kind of one of those things that's hard to explain. I had heard some Indian music before. Like I think my first recollection was in middle school or something. I was hearing Talvin sing and the way that he was incorporating Indian instruments with that like drum and bass kind of thing.
Yeah, tabla plus drum and bass.
Totally. Bansuri and sitar were there too. And I started getting a little bit more into the classical music when I heard out that some drummers and musicians in New York were studying it. And actually, when I first moved to New York, my first roommate had just handed me a CD. He was also a guitar player, and the first conversation we had, he was like, "Have you heard what they're doing in India with the slide guitar?" And I said, "No, I don't know." So he said, "Why don't you check out this CD? Debashish Bhattacharya playing slide guitar, and Samir Chatterjee, who was going to be my teacher later, playing tabla." And I was just blown away by the expression coming out of both those instruments, and probably just a few weeks later, Samir came and was doing like a master class at where I was in university at the time, the New School in New York. And he did this workshop, and I he was talking about things I had read about, like just hours before. Right. And it was like I had like this like magnet thing that was just drawing me, and I was just like,
this is what
I have
I'm
to go study with
now.
you, because I had been feeling like I had been within like the Western musical education system for a long time, and I was looking for a little bit of a different way to go about things,
Yeah.
And so he started going into the music with me in a way that was like, first, it was like totally opening up my eyes to all the different like vulnerable spots that I had. Things that I thought like I had taken for granted that I thought I knew were being uncovered that like maybe I hadn't inspected as much as I could.
Yeah.
And then it was also, he's like really focused on getting any of his students to work on finding a way to express themselves on their instrument the way that is very personal to each individual,
right.
So when I started doing that, plus studying raga with him, tala, and working on these melodic and rhythmic elements through there, I started to find that there was another way of practicing that I hadn't been exposed to before,
Okay.
Before in jazz and Western classical type thing, I felt there was a lot of focusing on creating some kind of product or something like that. It was like you work on this piece and then you finish that and then you move on to another thing.
Okay.
And then with the process of practicing with classical music, it's like there's kind of no beginning and no end. You just do things, and if you have 1 hour, you do 1 hour. If you have 8 hours, you do 8 hours. And then even going from there into the concert setting, what you're doing in the concert is basically the same kind of thing that you would have been practicing anyway.
Right.
So it becomes this kind of like meditative thread
over years
that goes over years, goes throughout every day and connecting each day to the point where I start thinking when I wake up, like, oh, I want to go practice because that's the thing that's connecting me to what I was doing the day before.
Was that not, do you not see a parallel now that you know of this concept? Do you not see a parallel with, say, a Western education as instead of thinking of it as one specific piece followed by the next one, just take it as one big learning session where every piece that you do is adding to your vocabulary anyway, and maybe not put an emphasis on performing that piece once you've learned it, but just take what you can get from it and then move on to the next one to learn something else.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that even, whenever I have like even something that has a deadline, like I join a new band or something and I have 20 tunes that I need to learn in a few weeks or something.
Yeah.
There's something that I can learn from all those things that I take with me into the next scenario. Yeah.
Right. And the larger vocabulary you have, it just kind of speeds up that learning process because you've heard it all once before.
Yeah. Yeah, more perspectives, finding out all the different ways that you can express music, all these different ways that little people talk to each other through music, you know?
Definitely. And then the more familiar you are with it, the more you can maybe try to understand what's happening in real time.
Yeah.
So another very interesting question that I wanted to ask you: do you think you wouldn't have found or made an effort to find a unique voice if you were restricted to just learning Western music, or in that system, does it prohibit you from finding your voice?
It is an interesting question.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know if I can answer that really directly though, because I don't know. I don't tend to dwell so much on what life would have been like if something had happened differently, because all
Sure.
I know is that
I'm
what
here
has
now.
happened to me has happened, and I know that I had some kind of things that I was latching onto, and I knew that there were certain moments that I was like really getting in the flow, and that like in concert situations, like I knew that I was like really expressing myself the way that I wanted to. So I know that that was happening even before I got into the Hindustani music.
So the goal was always to find who you are as a musician and a guitar player, right? It was never just a
Yeah, I've always been drawn to that. I've never been, I definitely will play along with recordings and I'll
Yeah.
learn different styles and stuff, but for some reason I've never been really that drawn to specifically following one other person's sound or something. That's just been something that like at times I've like agonized with and like tried to like not be like that,
Yeah.
but for some reason I've always just been like
And
trying to find that voice.
I think the results are pretty special. If you guys would like to check out some of Xander's work, you can find it on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. A couple of albums are out there already, and I think we're expecting another one sometime later this year.
Yeah, there's a bunch more tracks that are going to be released over the next year, and
Definitely, and
eventually-
just some of the way you play the voicings that you have, you use a lot of two-note harmony through in your guitar playing, which most people just don't do. It's either one note at a time or it's the whole chord there, but so much uniqueness in your playing that I think people will be pleasantly surprised to hear. It's certainly an eye-opener for me, and I've been playing music with some pretty all-right musicians for a very long time, so
yeah,
I have to say whatever you had going on back home is definitely working for you, and I hope some of that rubs off on Vinay and me too, because I was just telling Vinay, if you're one of the better musicians in a band all the time, you're not really growing. You need someone
Yeah.
to come here and just look out for some, I don't know, to make you grow a little further. On that note, some of the musicians that you've recorded with back home are
Yeah.
absolutely spectacular.
Mm-hmm.
Were you ever nervous going into recording situations with them? Were you nervous that maybe of all the pieces that were assembled there, you might have been the weak link, something like that?
Totally.
Because you worked with some cats back in the day. I mean, Dan
Yeah.
Weiss, since from a drummer's perspective, your bass player is unbelievable, even though he's
Yeah.
so young. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely have that kind of thing. And sometimes you get used to working with some people, but then you work even with the people that I work with all the time. There are definitely some moments where I like to feel like I'm not like the top of the band, and it's a
Yeah.
challenge for me to have people in the band that I feel like I need to like bring something to the table to make it be a worthwhile endeavor for them too, So always in the studio, I feel like that's a totally humbling process. Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
Definitely.
definitely when we were recording Transmission, that was a time where I actually hadn't been in the studio in quite some time for that one. And yeah, all the people who were recording that were like
In the
top notch
studio,
and
yeah.
learning the music so quickly. Yeah, and especially having Dan there, that was like he learned that entire record in 1-2 hour rehearsal, and had enough time to like give me some suggestions on making the music a little bit more clear for him,
Right.
And that was like I was like, all right, I'm getting a lesson right now,
Yeah,
I'm
true.
getting a lesson from someone who's like recorded like he's probably recorded like over 100 records or something, which like my work pales in comparison to the amount of that he's done.
True.
And yeah, it's good though. It's a
It
good
is.
push,
Yeah, definitely is.
to have someone who's like, it's like, man, this guy that I hired is like nailing this music faster than I am.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely. With you coming to India, I had to go through some preparation also to make sure that I wasn't here not holding up my end of the music, The other thing that we were talking about is how musicians in New York, because they usually are so busy,
Yeah.
and just you need to do as much work as you can to stay afloat, right? They don't
Yeah.
necessarily have enough of time to devote to one project as such. Do you feel like maybe in a recording process for the next album, you might be losing out on something because all you're restricted to with your band is maybe say 2 1-hour rehearsals, as opposed to maybe playing the music live for a couple of weeks, or just playing it together so everyone figures out how
Yeah.
best to bring the music out? Do you ever feel like you might be losing out on something like that in this process?
It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge for me. And it's one of the things that I deal with all the time, because I didn't grow up in New York. You know, I grew up in the countryside in Vermont, where we had all the time in the world. And that's
Right.
what you're talking about, just hanging out for a couple weeks. Like, that's how I came up making music.
Yeah.
You know, like the first couple albums that I made we made it like that, you know? Or like I had this band, Caution, 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 and we recorded a record where we like holed ourselves up in like a cabin on Long Island for like, I think, a whole week. We had a bunch of rehearsals before that, and then we set up the whole recording studio in the living room, and we were like rehearsing and recording at the same time. Once we got the tune to a certain
Then you'd lay it
point,
down.
we'd be like, all right, let's lay it down, and then we can move on. We can spend a half a day on that next one or something like that.
Yeah.
That's definitely a luxury, and
It
it's
is.
kind of like when you're in New York, you have to work to carve out that time and get people out, which can be hard because
True.
people have
It's expensive too, right?
they have financial pressures, and
They
to
do.
ask someone to like, oh, can you just
Unpaid
move out of the
rehearsal.
city?
Yeah.
Like getting someone out of New York for 2 weeks is like they're like essentially moving at that
True.
point.
Yeah, true.
You know, they don't necessarily have all that extra financial wherewithal to do that.
That's true.
So, yeah, it's kind of like it's always a dream, and you never know how you're going to be able to record.
That's true.
You know, I'm always trying to find usually I'll hold myself up away from the city first.
Yeah, I feel like writing needs to be done away from the city. I need to come back to Pune. I need to walk up the hill. That's when all the best composition kind of work happens.
Yeah, for sure. Listening to the wind,
Listening to the wind, it's a big part. Peacocks,
peacocks.
buffaloes, all the usual stuff
Yeah,
that you
obviously.
get here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So growing up in a small town, is that part of has it stuck with you forever now? Do you not feel like New York is your ideal situation when it comes to maybe just living?
Yeah, it's just a challenge. It's just a challenge, you know, because I like to just a lot of right angles,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of like
That's true.
turning the corner like this.
Not south,
you
east,
know.
west,
I
yeah,
like to
just-
go a little sideways,
Do you?
meander a little bit.
I've seen
you know.
that. I've seen that. You jaywalk with the best of us across Indian streets. So how much of the year do you spend in New York? I hear you're doing your masters right now and teaching as well at the new
Yeah.
school. Okay, how's that treating
Yeah.
you?
Both of those?
Yeah, both of those.
Oh.
Or we can take them one at a time, however you want.
No, they're treating me well because I'm working on a master's program where I actually I go up to Vermont for 1 week a semester, and I do like an intensive program for 1 week where we basically are all working on like a master's of fine arts degree. And so it's like 50 artists get together in this campus in the middle of the woods and just like talk about art, talk about projects, say yes to each other a lot, and say like, yeah, you should totally do that.
Right.
Try that also. And then I go and I do the work on my own. So I can still live in New York while I'm working on that.
Okay.
And it's kind of connected with the teaching that I'm doing because I'm teaching this Indian ensemble with Samir over at the new school. And so it's all kind of feeding together, finding new ways of communicating about music across between Western styles and Indian styles, finding ways to teach that to mostly jazz students who have never
Yeah.
played any kind of Indian music
style,
before.
right? Which is kind of what Vinay and I are going through also, where you're bringing the Indian style music to us, and we're here sitting playing Western style music, and we somehow have to figure out how to
Yeah.
meet in the middle.
Yeah.
I didn't see this happening, but
You didn't see it?
I didn't see it
What do you
happening.
think was going to happen?
I honestly don't know. I just knew, I knew it would be fun, you know. But yeah, I didn't think I'd have to sit there and learn how to play, like what I don't know what a tabla player would play for Marwa, and have to sit and kind of figure out how to play that on the drums.
Yeah.
It's not far removed or difficult, because finally music is still, I mean, it's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah, but I did not expect can I use the word white? I didn't think a white guy would be here. And, you know,
I'm a white dude.
yeah, you are a white
What are you
dude.
gonna do?
With like
What
a
am I
very
gonna do?
nothing really. As you get, but with such a good grasp of Indian classical music that it doesn't seem like. Never once has the word fusion entered my mind, and not the good kind of fusion, but the bad kind of fusion. So I have to say,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty impressive.
Mm.
And all credit to your teacher. You told me that your teacher has a big part, like a big role in playing.
Yeah.
Just like we were talking about, my experience with the tabla teacher was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And whereas your experience with a tabla player / teacher was
Yeah.
excellent, and a lot of deciding to follow this path just is in their hands. So
Yeah.
maybe tell us something about your teacher as well as how he helped you, because when we were talking about it earlier, you said you had a hand injury that
Yeah.
that kept you away from playing for around 4 years,
Yeah.
and he was a big part of just helping you get back towards playing, as was yoga, meditation. So you want to talk about that time?
Yeah. Well, I already talked a little bit about his like teaching approach,
Yeah,
right?
true.
And that it's a very like individualistic kind of thing. It's not a set systematic kind of way, you know. But and he's very much about like. It's interesting because he's been in the U.S. since the early '90s, right? So
Right.
most of his teaching is being done with
To Americans.
Americans,
Yeah.
who are coming at it from this certain perspective, which usually to me is kind of like, it's like they're just like running full speed ahead, trying to get into something, and then like all of a sudden you just get to it, and it's like you can't run anymore
Yeah.
because it takes so long to learn that music so slowly.
Yeah, the process
know?
is where it's at, right?
Exactly. You just have to relax into it, you know? So he's very good at just allowing people, maybe they need to like spin their wheels for a little while before they start slowing down and just kind of submitting to that process.
Yeah.
But it's not usually like a forcing kind of thing. And I had a lot of experience with just like the complete patience and tolerance and love that comes out of his teaching, you know, because there was this time when I had like a bike accident where I hit a car.
Okay.
And like I hit the left side of my body. I had a guitar on my back, and I like hit the left side of my body against this van. And over a period of a few months, I got to this point where suddenly I remember practicing these Bach pieces. And in the course of one piece, my left hand suddenly slowed down to the point where I couldn't play anymore. And I went through this long period of just like not treating it.
Okay.
And I just couldn't practice for a long time. And it got so bad that I was like, I felt the pain of playing guitar when I just looked at the guitar,
Right.
even before I picked it up. And I had this time where I didn't, I was like kind of confused about Indian music. And I thought maybe it's like to be expected. I went through this period of anxiety or something that was like, well, I don't think that I'm preparing to be like a professional Hindustani classical guitar player. So
Yeah.
maybe what's the point? You know? And I had just kind of moved away from it for a long time. And after I had this injury, I just like had this moment of waking up where I went back to Samirji and I said, look, I have this problem. I want to play, but I can't play, you know? And he said, okay, just come back next week, you know? And I started sitting. I started listening to, I would show up. I couldn't even bring my guitar because I didn't know what to do with the guitar. I was listening to like 5-year-olds having tabla lessons.
Right.
Starting to feel a little bit jealous because these 5-year-olds were making more music than I could. You know? And then he started just kind of nudging me a little bit like, okay, why don't you play for 5 minutes? And if you start getting anxious about it,
We'll stop. Yeah.
just let yourself stop, follow your breath for a few minutes, and wait till you're not anxious anymore, and then go play again. You know, maybe you need to just stretch a little bit or something like that. So he, through guiding me to like repeatedly reminding me to not be anxious.
Right.
That was like the main thing. It was just don't be anxious, let it do its thing. Then I was able to kind of find the space in my life to get back to the music. That's when I started going to more yoga classes and I started realizing, I have to get my whole body functioning
Yeah.
better.
And you actually have
You know?
quite some control over your whole body just with the mind. It's not out of your hands.
Absolutely.
So,
And realizing that like you can have some kind of physical problem, but then it can become a mental thing too. And you start telling yourself that things are going to hurt even if they maybe actually aren't going to.
Right, and
So then you start fabricating this pain.
yeah. So
And
the
then
physical problem is healed, but the mental issue is still there. So now it's just you don't even know your hand is fine.
yeah. That's like, and that's it's an interesting, ironic thing because my mother is actually a psychiatrist,
Okay.
and she has done a lot of work with chronic patients who have chronic pain.
Right.
You know, these people who have back pain for 10, 20 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And what it turns out a lot of times when there is pain that's been there for so long, you get used to it and you think that it's like part of your identity. So then how do you get over that and retrain yourself to say, I don't
Separate it.
have to have this identity of being in pain.
Yeah.
Why can't I just believe that I can just do whatever I want?
Right.
Why do I have to go around saying, oh, I'm still playing music, but you need to know how much pain I have?
Yeah.
Why can't we just get over this and then become,
Pain-free
show other
or-
people that there's a lot of power in the mind to get over those things?
Yeah. I think it's all in the mind, really, or a lot of it is.
A lot of it is.
What's the conventional wisdom on solving chronic pain if you stay away from Eastern mysticism? What is
You want to get into controversial topics?
Yeah, I do.
mean, as of right now, it seems like there's a lot of tendency to be prescribing prescription pain medications for those things.
Right.
In the U.S., this is like a huge plague right now.
mostly opiates, shit like that?
A lot of
Get
opiates.
people hooked onto it.
OxyContin,
Right,
fentanyl,
fentanyl.
and then it becomes this whole black market kind of thing of those.
When your prescription runs out, you need to go to your drug dealer, get whatever it is that you can.
It's a very sad situation.
It is
Very
which-
sad.
Am I allowed to mention that you don't have health insurance? Can we start with that?
No, I don't have health insurance.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the legal status of not having health insurance is
Oh,
in
it's
America.
legal. It's legal.
Are you not worried about that at all? Because medical costs are huge, and shit could happen I got medical insurance for the first time
Yeah.
this year, and I remember telling my dad that this is a waste of money. But then 3 weeks later, I tore my ACL, and I was like, damn, best decision ever. And I was like super healthy, didn't think anything would happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, how is this no health insurance thing? Does it play in the back of your mind? Does it make you a little more careful about maybe jumping off a couple of steps, stuff like that, or do you just not think about it until I mentioned it right now? In which case, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
like I didn't go skiing right before I came on this tour.
Okay.
That's for sure. I don't know if maybe I feel more anxious not having health insurance,
right? 'Cause-
but it's like I don't think that I would say like I never want to have health insurance again.
no, not at all.
But it's definitely like the system in the US right now is so bogged down and so confusing that it's like it's really hard to get coverage on things anyway.
Okay.
So if, like
like a basic
maybe
plan?
I don't know exactly what the system is like in India right now, but in the US, like maybe I can get a plan through my job, but
Yeah.
I'll probably get a plan that still won't really cover most of my basic needs unless I have to go to the hospital because I broke my knee
Right.
and my expenses would be over $10,000 or something.
Right. Anything below that, you'd have to pay anyway.
There's a good chance of it. It becomes kind of random. So it becomes this thing where the health insurance start charging the hospitals more money, and then but they don't want to pay for the whole thing.
Right.
So then the hospitals say, well, we have to charge more because if the health insurance is only going to cover
This much.
some
above that.
portion of it, then we have to make it high enough that when we get paid 50%,
We're getting
we'll
paid
still get
enough.
the right amount.
Yeah.
But then if you don't have health insurance, they're charging you this amount that's like 1 month's rent.
Which is what you'll
for
have to
something.
pay anyway, like double the amount that it actually costs.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really kind of confusing and consistently turning over situation right now.
And is health insurance just unaffordable for, say, a jazz musician in New York? Is it just
Yeah. For the most part.
yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, same. Is it a similar story for most of the community of musicians that you play with and spend time with in New York? Or
I would say it's a pretty common topic of conversation.
okay,
especially for musicians who are in New York that are like traveling a lot.
Right.
Yeah, and don't have like a steady kind of job that will cover that kind of thing. Definitely.
Why are things so bad financially for arguably some of the best musicians in the world, if not probably the best group of musicians that exists? Because New York just brings them all together, and then it's survival of the fittest. And
Yeah.
the ones that do regularly have a gig or that play in
Yeah.
New York should ideally be making a comfortable living, right?
Yeah.
Is that system broken too when it comes to venues, or how does this work over there?
It's really kind of a conundrum. I think many of us in New York are wondering the same kind of thing about where this is coming from. I can say that in the 12 years that I've been in New York, I've seen the rents go up in all the neighborhoods consistently.
Yeah.
To the point where anytime you leave one apartment that you're in, there's a good chance you may have to move to another neighborhood because you can no longer stay in the neighborhood
At the same price that you were paying. Yeah.
at the same price. And this is just, this level of gentrification is pushing around the entire city. And it's become, when I first moved to New York, there was a lot of stuff was going on in the neighborhoods in Brooklyn of like Williamsburg. Bushwick was kind of starting to be a scene for like a lot of independent music. I was doing a lot of like experimental free improv, noise shows, and these things mixing with dancers and theater kind of performance things. And then I used to be involved in a couple of different like house venues in that neighborhood called 1012 Willoughby, the Freedom Garden. And we put on all these house shows where people started calling us from Europe wanting to play in these basements.
Nice.
You know, like I'm going on tour in the US and I want to play in your basement.
So word got out that this was a place to be.
Yeah. And it was like, as far as I can tell, that was one of the last phases or the most recent phases when that was happening of like 2000, that was ending around 2012 or something like that. And everyone just started dispersing from that neighborhood. And I haven't really seen any areas that have been as focused as like an artistic community as that one was in the last like almost 10 years at this point.
Okay.
But the whole city is getting more expensive, and there seems to be like generally in the U.S. there's less funding
For the arts.
for the arts,
True.
and it's trickling. It's
down
kind of
to New
trickling
York
down.
also. I feel like that would be the last place where maybe people would stop patronizing the arts, because I don't know, you always find 100 people that want to show up at a jazz club, right, in New York. Or
It's changing.
Yeah.
It's changing. Show attendance throughout the entire U.S. has definitely dropped a lot in the last 10 years. To the, in pretty much any city, there's less people going.
Okay.
People are more likely to just watch things on their phone.
Right.
You have so much access to seeing live music even on YouTube or something that you just see less people showing up.
Yeah, I guess leaving the house is expensive for whoever's going out to see the show also, right? So
It's just there's something is shifting in the way that people are consuming music. Yeah, definitely. But I was actually going to say, like, there's something different about the way that people are like connecting with each other.
Right.
Where people are doing so much like texting. I could connect with you on while I'm in India. It could be a regular SMS, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram.
But I would rather do this though. This seems like a better way to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Eye contact, mugs.
Yeah, well, that's why we're probably, that's why we're
Old
in a band
school,
together.
and also why no one comes to see these shows anymore, because you can't text the show to them. But since things are heading in this direction, maybe not long term, but what do you see for yourself the next couple of years or 5 years? How do you see Xander Naylor, the musician / composer / just working man, progressing? How to pay the bills long term, how to someday be able to afford comprehensive health insurance, maybe some other nice stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a question that musicians everywhere ask. Indian musicians do it all the time, where you either play twiddly jazz and make no money, or you go play some really I won't comment on the quality of the music, but you go play some Bollywood music, and then you get some amount of financial security that'll keep you on par with your peers who are lawyers, doctors, investment bankers, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So what do you think is your path towards just being more comfortable with an income?
The main priority for me right now is getting to a place where I'm spending as much of my life making music as possible.
Definitely.
You know, and we had like talked about having that injury before, you know, and when that came, I had moved away from making music full time.
Yeah, you were
So
working.
yeah, I started working as a gardener. I was doing all these like fancy rooftop gardens in Manhattan and things like that.
For
You
these
know,
investment bankers and
yeah, all the people.
all the trash in the world.
Yeah.
No offense, Rutvik.
It's a different world.
It is.
This is
It really
definitely a
is.
different world. You know,
It is.
and it was cool because I got to see another side of society. I got to see another side in New York.
Yeah.
And I needed to have a job, and I like doing that job. But you know, right now I'm happy to say that I left that job, and so I'm kind of like I'm at a place where I'm jumping.
Wait, I thought they fired you though. Don't say left like it was your decision.
No.
Okay. I
No,
feel
that was a different job.
Oh, okay.
that
2
was a
days
different
before
job.
Christmas.
That was a different job.
Okay. Oh, that was the.
Yeah. That was the one when I was working running the garbage compactors.
Right. Okay. That one
Yeah.
they fired.
That
you.
was only 6 months,
Alright.
and they laid me off right before Christmas.
cool. Okay. But yeah.
But that was a good one too. That was a good story because I think the day before that, I was working and this old security guard like saw me at night and he was just looking at me and he's like, "Man, what are you doing here, man? Like you got to go do something. Don't you like play guitar or something? Like you shouldn't be here. Like me, like I'm retired and I'm just doing this job. Like I
fun.
wouldn't want to be here if I was you." And then the
Right.
next and the next day I got like laid off and I was just like, "Whoa."
another
It
sign.
was one of those moments,
Yeah.
you know. But
But yeah, with the landscaping job, you were saying you quit and
yeah, I left that thing and now I'm kind of it's just one of those like jumping like a leap of faith right now. I started doing a lot more teaching the last few years and I love teaching.
Then, yeah.
I love teaching anyone from like the youngest age 5 or 6 is usually the cutoff for guitar all the way up. I love
Okay.
doing that. So
That's
definitely
nice.
more of that in the future. Definitely more touring. I have a feeling I'll be coming back here and
I
we'll
have a
be
feeling
doing
you'll
some
be
more
coming
shows
back too.
together.
Yeah. I feel like next year we'll put together something even more extensive. I'll see you probably in New York in August
Yeah.
if possible. See how underpaid musicians really
Dude,
can be.
come check it out.
Underpaid. Yeah, I'm a little worried now. I thought it would be better than here, but clearly it's not. Clearly it's the same amount of shit everywhere. There's no
Yeah.
escaping this life that we've somehow chosen. At least you have the
Yeah.
option to do this landscaping / other. No such.
And I
option
will keep doing it.
exists.
I love spending time outside.
Yeah.
You know? It's a calming kind of thing.
Yeah, and growing some of your own
Yeah.
vegetables. I feel like that's my plan for 2020. Just to
Nice.
keep like
I'm doing that too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you want to know what you're putting in your body, right?
Yeah.
Do you really trust anyone anymore when it comes to pesticide usage or, I don't know, GMO, stuff like that? No.
That is something that my wife Maggie and I have gotten like really into and like pretty passionate about the last few years, you know. And it like definitely thanks to her, you know.
Yeah.
I was less conscientious of that stuff when I first met her and she was already kind of getting into being very picky about what food you eat. But like especially in New York, it's like really trying to go to farmers markets and stuff, local markets where the stuff is coming from nearby and like
Right.
knowing who the farmers are, you know, or like definitely knowing where the meat is coming from,
Right.
that kind of thing. So when I'm here, I'm pretty liberal about what I'm eating. I feel like I trust a lot of the food, but in the US, I feel like I'm very picky about what I eat.
Right.
Yeah.
I think urban gardening is kind of the way to go now when it comes to just fruits, vegetables, stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people working on finding new solutions to that stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen some crazy stuff about what they're doing with that in like Singapore and stuff too.
Yeah,
These like
definitely.
vertical
Gardens, yeah.
gardens, these
True.
whole buildings of floors and floors and floors. In
yeah.
Netherlands, they're doing these like crazy greenhouse
They've
situations
been doing
with
crazy
lights.
greenhouses in the Netherlands forever, but that's a whole different thing.
know.
But your wife has a website where she talks about urban gardening.
Mhm.
What's it called? In case.
So that's called Spring for Ceres.
Okay.
Ceres is Ceres.
Oh right, yeah, I know. I've
You
seen
know.
it on
It's a Greek thing.
orange juice cartons. I feel like there's a
Really?
yeah, there's a juice company in India or somewhere that's got the same name.
Oh, nice.
Uh,
Check that out.
Not the cartons, the website.
The website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be nice. Okay, is there anything else
So-
that you want to maybe specifically cover about the guitar, about music, about life, or do you feel like
I have my choice of like anything in
anything
life.
you want? Yeah.
Oh my
anything.
God.
Something that you feel is important, something that you want to tell maybe the 6 people that tune into this podcast. It might be 9, might be 12. I don't want to get your
What?
hopes up. Yeah, that might be.
What?
Yeah. Is that
Find a
it?
few good people you can trust
Right.
and follow them.
Have you found a couple of these people in New York that not maybe in a day-to-day or a life kind of situation? Obviously, you have Maggie, but in a
Yeah.
musical context, have you found your Vinay, or in Vinay's case, your
Yeah,
Shreyas?
I definitely have like a few people that I connect with like super deeply on musical stuff.
Okay.
You know, or just that we can just call each other up on the phone or something and we like know exactly where we're at, you know. It's good to have those kind of people.
It is. Yeah, I feel like you can't do this thing alone anyway.
Yeah,
you know?
music is meant to be made with other people, you know.
True.
We can't just do it in our room by ourselves all the time.
No. I mean, some of it should be done in a room by yourself, but then when it's time to put it out there, I feel like you need a group of people. And I'm
Yeah.
glad now you have a group of people in 2 continents, you know, which is nice.
It's
Feel like-
amazing.
yeah, I feel like that's a big takeaway.
I feel super fortunate about that.
Me
you
too,
know?
dude.
It's amazing.
And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the next week where we'll be in Bangalore, Delhi,
Dude,
Shillong.
it's going to be great.
It's gonna be pretty great.
We're gonna just go all over the place doing this stuff.
Pretty much.
Trying out new things. We don't even know what we're gonna play.
I have no idea. So the
No
thing is,
idea.
the 3 shows we've done so far have been completely different. One of them was a
Yeah.
lounge jazz set. One of them was a funk set. The other was I don't know, the set as maybe we wanted to play it.
Yeah.
And all of them sounded pretty great.
We did
So-
like a pretty rock set when we played
yeah, at the
here.
brass room. Oh,
We played here.
at Swig, yeah.
Yeah.
Swig was a pretty rock set.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, of
can
course
talk
we
about
can. We
that.
can talk about. The
Yeah.
only thing is we can't say come out to the show tonight because this won't be online for at least another month.
Yeah.
By then it'll be too late. But
Sorry, you either missed it or you didn't miss it.
Schrodinger's show.
Just getting deep.
But yeah, so we did a rock show at Swig.
Mm-hmm.
Shisha, what kind of set will we play tonight?
Shisha. I feel like Shisha's probably going to be similar to like the Skinny Moe's thing, where it's probably going to be a little more the jazz audience, you know.
True.
So cleaner
Right.
version.
Also comes down to how much Vinay and I have been drinking. I feel like that's a big.
Yeah, that's a thing.
that's a big part of the show
Yeah.
also. But either way, man, I'm so
Yeah,
glad
dude.
that we got to meet. I think a big thank you to Vinay for just connecting all of us.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, maybe next year we'll do another episode
Let's
with
do
you
it.
and just see where we were and where we are and how you stand with health insurance.
Yeah.
Okay, dude.
Hopefully I'll have some by then.
I hope so too. But so why don't you tell me about your latest album?
Yeah.
Are we playing some of the songs off it?
We are. Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to be playing Pursuit, which is off of that, which just came out on that video on YouTube recently.
Right.
We're playing Ritalin, Surrender, and Lunar Acropolis are all from that.
Okay,
the
that's
record
amazing.
that has yet to come out. Should be
So
out later
yeah,
this
why don't you
year.
tell us a little about it?
Yeah. The last record, Transmission, was coming out at this time when I hadn't been playing very much for a few years. So that was like really this kind of like breaking out of, you know, past habits and just trying to find this expansiveness.
And you found it,
you
man.
know.
Yeah,
You think so?
I think so. I think you found.
Great.
Yeah, I
Wow.
feel like maybe guitar wasn't the focus of it at all. It was just this is the album.
Yeah, I was trying out a
Yeah.
bunch of stuff,
Worked.
you know? And I'm kind of like I'm going to keep doing that with this record, or I have done that with this record. I realized that, you know, I started getting more and more in tune with this thing of like being into kind of meditational music and meditation practices, but then at the same time, being in this world where we're like always on Instagram and we're just like always
Yeah.
texting in the middle of things, right?
True.
So there's this like contrast of like that scattered life and then just like trying to turn it off and have quiet time.
Right.
You know, so this record has a lot to do with that tension and these like kind of digital glitches and things and a lot of editing that kind of went into making that sound.
Okay.
Mixed with some of the more like calm melodies and stuff like the things that we're playing on this tour.
That
you
actually
know?
sounds great. I feel like now this is how I want to play tonight's show. You know,
Let's do it.
It's somewhere between chaotic and digital, and then the other half should be very melodic and just like serene and do its thing. I think
Yeah.
that's a good approach.
Yeah.
So I hear you have a lot of instruments, other than maybe just the conventional stuff you would expect
Yeah.
in a jazz trio. Any banjo on this?
Oh.
But yeah, so tell me about some of the instrumentation and some of the thought that's gone into this album.
Yeah. This record, I definitely wanted the core.
Mosquito. Yeah. All of this is
Machar.
staying though, but yeah. Machar.
Machar.
Yeah, he's good at this. Okay. I feel like that's the second raga in Indian classical music, right? It's just
Fucker.
Yeah, keep going though.
Did I get him?
I don't know. It's okay, we'll get it. Just keep
Banjo.
talking.
There's
and then-
mostly banjo. I have like one piece for like 5 banjos, harmonized.
Right.
Kazoo.
And it's the Jackson 5, but the Naylor 5.
Yeah, it's the Naylor 5. A lot of nailing.
Of course. What else do cousins do? But okay, on a serious note though. You think about your cousins now? Is that what's happening? Okay.
Every time I space out, that's what I'm thinking about. Just banjo.
Okay. Bella Fleck.
So
Yeah.
anyway, Bella Fleck's on the record.
Nice. Bella Fleck is suing you for saying this, but continue.
Yeah, just please. I love your music. No, but I wanted the core of the band to be the band that's been the live band for the last like 3 years, basically.
Right.
So Raphael Panier is on the
Superb drummer.
drums.
Yeah, big fan.
Elijah Schiffer on the alto sax and Nick Joswiak on electric bass.
Love that guy too.
Just like awesome. We had already been playing a lot of these tunes. You know, we had like a really solid groove and vibe on that stuff. So we did that, and then I added 2 vocalists, Sarah Pedinati, also known as Lip Talk, Angelica Bess, 2 great vocalists, just adding a bunch of nice sounds to a few of the tracks. And then a bunch of like amazing horn players that I know from New York who work with all kinds of people. They've like played with Beyonce, they've played with Boy George and done all these kinds of things. Cole Cameron Green, Alex Asher, Alex Spiegelman, all playing on that stuff. So we kind of like, I really wanted to produce it more as if it's like a pop record.
Right.
You know, so just like tracking things separately and being able to have like the leeway to edit
Sample,
and mix
slice,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, the way that we want, you know. So I think we found that vibe, you know,
And you're
found
not-
that balance.
And in that process, you don't feel like you're losing out on the performance aspect of these recordings, or is that maybe a compromise that you have to make?
It's a different thing, you know? Like sometimes I really like cutting a record that feels more like a jazz record where everything's live straight through, but I also feel like sometimes that doesn't always like really come across on a record, and some music demands a different kind of treatment.
Yeah.
You know? So if you have a thing where you just like really want the drums to be like sounding like they're being played through like some gritty like boombox or something,
That's what you will do, yeah.
then that's what you should do, you
True.
know? And trying to find the people who are going to make those sounds. You know, I had Jacob Bergson was helping with the engineering, and Ian Hersey working on that and doing all the mixing, and we had all talked about
What you wanted
creating
to
the
achieve.
sound for the record a specific kind of way, you know? So the whole team was involved in that thing.
Yeah, it sounds like an exciting process.
Yeah.
So I think in the video for Riddlin,
Mm-hmm.
you guys were talking about maybe communicating colors across to the rest of the band.
Oh, that was for Pursuit.
Or was that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that concept like?
That was like this concept that just came out of one rehearsal where I brought the music in, and you know what the music for that tune sounds like.
I do,
it's just,
yeah.
It's just like a lot of these like shifting time signature kind of things.
Yeah.
And 2 of the guys in the band had just said like, hey, it looks like you wrote something that you wanted it to sound really random, but like we're never going to make it sound like that because we're going to be sitting here reading this music, so
Right.
it's just going to sound stale. And then someone, either Raphael or Elijah, said, what if we call each section by a color and memorize that whole thing, and then in the studio you'll call out each color,
Right.
and we'll go to the next section whenever you call it out.
And it'll sound random that way, like, and
Yeah.
not stale.
Yeah.
And yeah, that worked out pretty well, dude.
So then, and then I had this added challenge of being in the studio, calling
Yelling
out
out.
colors, and then messing it up, and then having to stop the take.
And then start it up again. Yeah, that's okay. Whatever you did get out of it sounds pretty amazing, though. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that song.
I think it
also.
turned out pretty well. Yeah.
I think it did. I'm excited to see what the final mixes sound like, and when the product is ready to go, I hope you'll send me
I'm
a
super psyched with how they sound.
signed CD. That would
Dude,
be
I'll
nice.
sign it. If there is a CD, who
Right.
knows?
Who does CDs anymore?
I don't
Maybe
know.
maybe vinyl now. I feel like
Hopefully vinyl.
you had a fan yesterday who wanted to buy
Yeah.
some vinyl off you, which would be cool.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hope so.
But either way, man. So when's the expected date for release for this album?
I hope by the end of 2020.
Okay, so still a long way to go though in terms of post production, but everything is tracked and ready.
No, everything's done. The most important thing though is finding a home. That's what it is. Finding a record label for it.
How's that process? People with some interest are around, or
yeah, they're around, but you just have to, gotta wait for the right timing sometimes.
Someone who believes in that record as much as you do, not just someone who's looking to push it out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, it's kind of a changing landscape for releasing music right now.
Definitely. Independent releases seem to be the way to go.
Independent releases, and also just like releasing a lot of single tracks with videos and things.
True.
So I find that that's starting to be a better way to get the music to reach more people than just putting out like an entire record all at once.
But this is assuming you've written the album as a collection of great songs and not a cohesive piece of 40-minute music that maybe people need to listen to as in album form, right? Just that comes down to how you wrote it.
Yeah. I pretty much always write, I try to make records so that you can listen to them all the way through and then it makes sense.
Yeah. And is that the case with this one also?
I think so. So
maybe do you think listeners will miss out on that bigger picture if you put it out one at a time?
Yeah, it's always possible. But it'll still come out all together
eventually, right? When it's done, yeah.
But getting people's attention when they're listening to their music on the phone or the computer a little bit here and there, I definitely find that like putting out one song at a time gets people to listen, as opposed to feeling like, oh, I'm going to wait until later when I have 45 minutes.
Right.
But
you might lose your audience.
Less and less do people feel like they can commit that whole time.
That's true.
Immediately.
Most of my album listening is stuff that I've already heard. And so this other thing that you told me, that you were thinking of producing / putting this record together as a pop record, is that so that maybe you want to get people's attention sooner and you don't want them to wait for too long, much like a pop song would?
Yeah, and that's part of that thing that like sometimes the format of like a jazz performance kind of translates differently once it's on a recording. You know?
Yeah.
So a lot of what I've been doing is just like cutting out these extended intros and then just having it so that it goes right into a song so that you know what's going on right away. And then
you trying to subconsciously combat people's decreasing attention spans, or is this just an evolution that all music needs to do?
I think there's some level of combating the attention spans.
Definitely, right? You can't be blind to all of this and still expect your music to be heard like it would maybe 25 years ago when people had the time for a long intro.
Yeah. I mean, I can't just sit. I might be frustrated with the fact that, like, collectively, all of our attention spans are getting shorter.
Sorry, what?
But wait a second, it's a mosquito. But I can't just sit here being mad about it.
Yeah, you should do something about it, or you should
Still want to make music.
Agreed.
Boom.
Okay, I think that's a good way to end it. Now let's go do that show at Shisha.
All right.
All right. Thanks, dude. Thank you for coming. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.